of like Superman and Spider-Man, all of that, you know, they have they can trace that always to the original man or woman. That is it. I am suggesting at this All Black National Convention that we go back to Black and utilize, exploit, take full advantage of this unique Blackness, this unique spiritual connection that we have. And we will build a new reality in a new world based on that. I thank you so much for listening to these few words. You can follow me on Instagram at Vicki X Dillard. My website is missvickitv.com. That's MISSVICKITV.com. I want you to make sure that you check me out live Monday through Friday on FlyNubianQueenTV.com. Our show often re-airs on other platforms, but if you want a predictable time when you watch me live, that's weekdays, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on FlyNubianQueenTV.com. Looks like somebody's putting the links in the chat. I thank you so much. I honor you, Dr. Boyce Watkins, for this amazing platform and for believing in this Mississippi girl. Thank you so much.
Yes. Everybody watching, could you give Vicki a digital round of applause and let her know how much we love her and how much we appreciate her. I'll just tell you this. You know, if I'm going to war, I'm gonna tell you that there's a lot. I see a lot of these little wimpy men out here. I wouldn't go to battle with a bunch of them, but if I'm going to war, and I'm choosing Black women to go to war with me, Vicki will be at the top of the list because Vicki is she is a spiritual warrior. That's what you are, and she's a blessing to everybody that gets a chance to take a look at her. And she's such a hustler. You know, I'll tell you what, I have real high standards when I evaluate people that come along and, you know, that have that thing they want to do and stuff like that. And I remember when Vicki was on her Facebook page, and she would be on there, I mean, going hard every day. It didn't matter if 10,000 people were watching or nobody was watching. I mean, she just was so committed to what she does. And I'm gonna tell you, if you want to be successful, go watch Vicki. Go watch because it's an exercise of intellect for sure, skill for sure, but it's also this sort of spiritual power that you carry. You know, that really just you take out your adversaries without even looking at them. You know, you just smile at them, you just shine like and Vicki and I talked about this, and it's like if you think about the power of the universe, the in the solar system, the smaller objects they form a gravitational rotation, or they orbit the bigger objects, right? The more powerful objects, they take up space. They have power that extends out, and all the little objects kind of just form they just kind of rotate around the bigger objects, and then if there's a bigger object beyond the big object, then things will rotate around that. And so with Vicki, I compare Vicki to the sun, because when the sun shows up with its enormous power, and the sun doesn't have to go and fight with every little rock and pebble in the solar.
Yes.
It doesn't have to argue with the planets and everything. It just has to shine. It just shines. And then all the planets just kind of get in line and they rotate around the sun. And so when it comes to the adversaries, she's a person that dominates her adversaries without even addressing them, without trying to fight with them, without getting in with these Negro naysayers and petty-minded Black people. She does not do that. Vicki just shines, and I watch how they just all respond. They all react. And lots of people all throughout this world, not just this country, but through the world, they're responding to Vicki. Vicki Dillard has become a force, and it has been one of the great pleasures of my lifetime to watch this evolution take place. And I can't wait to see what's in store in the future. So thank you so much, Vicki. You're amazing.
I thank you so very much, Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I scream from the mountaintops, and I don't care whether you like it or lump it, Doc. But when I think about my journey, when I think about what was put in my heart as a little girl, when I think about things that were declared over my life, when I think about courts and prison and activism, when I think about a serious illness that I'm fighting, and I'm thinking about a few $100s in disability, and then I'm thinking, but how can these things be? And then one day, across my screen, we're looking for new fly Nubian queens. Send in your email. And then I sent you my little link, and your executive team, you all brought me on, and you believed in me, pushed me, gave me an opportunity, elevated me. And I'm thinking, who knew that I was going to be working with this man that I saw on CNN, Fox News, Dr. Boyce Mark, and I was hollering at the screen too when I saw you on TV and stuff too. Who knew years later, Dr. Boyce? And so it's my honor and it's my privilege to work with someone who believes in my voice. And you don't just believe in it, you put it out there. And that has changed my life. And according to some of the testimonies received, it's been a blessing to others. And I want to thank you so very much for that opportunity.
Thank you, and everybody who's watching. So, Vicky, thank you so much,
Thank you, Dr. Boyce.
and I'll go ahead and you can step to this off the stage.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Problem, and because I see some other panels are coming through, and I'll just say this to everybody watching the thing that I want you to carry away with. Remember, this is not just about me at all. It's really about you and what you can gain and walk away from this with. And the word, I think, one word that describes, I think, what you just saw was a basic concept called teamwork. In the black community, remember, we have bad leadership in many cases because we get caught up in what I call the Superman model of black leadership. We pick one person that we designate as the super Negro, and everybody gets behind them. And then that person, sometimes their ego gets big and they feel like it's all about them and they are the center of everything. And then the problem is that when you have one person that's out there doing everything, first of all, it's a big burden to carry if you're trying to be that one person. But then second of all, it's easy for other people to exterminate a leadership or a movement that is led by one person. When the reason I love partnering with people like a Vicky Dillard, and there's many others out here that we partner with, is because you ain't got to do it all by yourself. There are people out there that maybe in your circle who have talents you do not have, that can add energy that goes beyond your own. When you start your business, you bring in great people that can also supplement what you're trying to do. That's how you succeed. You succeed as a team. And so I encourage you, later on, George C. Frazier will come by and stuff like that. He's a guy that can teach you about maintaining relationships so you can build teams, so you can grow organizations, so you can delegate, so you can create what you want to create. Okay, so let's go and get started on the next panel. I see some of our panelists are arriving right now, and Taryn sent me over some bios, and so Taryn, I'm going to go and grab these bios out of the chat. So we have a panel on black men every year at the convention. Because we believe black men need to have a voice. We deserve to have a voice. And right now, this is a really important time to have a black men's panel because right now, I think black men are exerting a voice in this presidential election that is extraordinarily powerful. Whether you agree with it or not, the black man is rising in so many different areas. And what I love about all this stuff going on, again, not to say anybody has to agree or disagree with what's going on with Ice Cube and everything else. Everybody has an opinion, and that's okay. But when I did have a conversation with Cube, the one thing I said, I think that what people are uncomfortable with is they're not used to black men standing up and being there and saying, look, we demand to be included in this conversation. We are not a weak little feminized community that's just full of, single moms. We have men out here too. And I compare it to a household. When you go up in a house and you're trying to get something out of the house, maybe get a date with the daughter or something like that, traditionally, you're supposed to talk to a daddy first. You ain't supposed to just walk up in there and just sweet talk to mama and go straight to the daughter's bedroom. You have to talk to the daddy. So when I think about what's going on right now in this country, my only words I would use to describe that are the words, daddy's home. Daddy's home now, and you cannot have anything going on in our community without including the voice of the black man in that conversation. So, Taryn, I can't find the bios, but I know these guys, so I'm just going to introduce them one by one. And because I think introductions are better from the heart anyway. So I'm gonna start with Ryan Mccrary. Ryan Mccrary is a young brother out of Philadelphia. And by the way, guys, I know you have businesses and everything else, and we can mention your businesses for sure during the conversation. Ryan Mccrary is he's a young financial expert. He's a good guy. He's the same about the same age as my daughter, so I was hoping that they would meet up and start dating each other, but it didn't work out that way. I'm kidding. I was secretly cheering for something to happen. I'm playing with you. But Ryan is he's just a solid guy, and he believes in blackness. He believes in economic intelligence, and he also represents himself very well. And he's really part of that generation that's not in my own, but that's after mine. That I was hoping to have some small part in influencing. And so, please give a digital round of applause to Mr. Ryan Mccrary. The next brother I want to introduce is the hardest working man in politics or economics. Ryan Mack is a brother that I would say I've always said that I would never endorse a politician. But if Ryan ever, I know you ran for office before, but if you ran for office now, you'd be the only person I'd endorse that I can think of, because Ryan is a brother of integrity. He's a brother that works extremely hard. About a decade ago, we went on a tour. Remember that tour we went on, Ryan, where we went around you went to all the cities. I went to a couple of them with you. And we went to all these cities and speaking on financial literacy. And he has a heart for the people. And he goes out and he's teaching financial literacy constantly to everybody who will listen. He's a man of God. He's a strong brother out of Detroit. And he's also one of those people that I know we disagree on some political issues, and I love it though because he expands my thinking, and there's always love underneath all of that. So please give a digital round of applause to Mr. Ryan Mack. The next brother I'll introduce is Jeff Leitzy Jr. Now Jeff is the youngest member of the panel. Jeff he's little Stephen A. Smith. That's what I call him. He graduated from college. He also is a deep in a sports guy, but he's not just a sports guy who happens to be black. He's a black man who is a sports guy. He does stuff on the Ball Sports Network several times a day. Several times a day. He's got that hustle. He's got that analytical ability, and he's got that communication skill that I know is going to take him a long way. So please give a digital round of applause to Mr. Jeff Lightsy Jr. And also he's from Louisville, my hometown, so I got to mention that he's my homeboy. The next brother I will mention is Ric Mathis. Ric Mathis is I met Rick when Rick created the Black Friday film series. And what impressed me about Black Friday, I heard about the film. It was doing extremely well. It was one of the blackbusters. Remember I told you guys about blackbuster films, not blockbuster, blackbuster films that come out of the black community, funded by black people, supported by black people. So we're building this great black film industry. And I remember hearing about the film, and I was like, dang, they didn't say nothing to me about this movie. They didn't ask me to be in it. I didn't say it out loud. I just thought that in my head. And so I went to his event, to support and everything. I think I was speaking at the event in Ohio. And then Rick came up and Rick was like, yeah, we were going to ask you to be in the movie. We didn't know how to get in touch with you. And so after that, the next one, the Black Friday Part 2, I was a part of that. And what I like about Rick is when we talk about that whole two things. One is excellent marketing ability. If you're building a business, watch how Rick markets. Look at what he's wearing right now. I knew he was going to wear a Black Friday shirt without even knowing what he was going to wear today. We did not, we two men, I don't talk to other men about what they're wearing today. But I knew Rick was going to wear a Black Friday shirt because Rick is a constant marketer of his product and his brand. You should do that. If you watch interviews we did with Ice Cube, he's always wearing an Ice Cube shirt. And he's Ice Cube. And he ain't got to tell nobody who he is, but he still does that because that's what you do when you're trying to build something. The last but certainly not least, Willie D. Now, let me tell you how I met Willie D. I was in Houston, and I was about to give a speech in Houston, and somebody said, Willie D wants to meet you. I said, Willie D? I said, Willie D from the Ghetto Boys? They said, yeah, he wants to talk to you. So Willie D came back, and it was an honor. It was exciting to me because like millions of people, I remember when the Ghetto Boys would come out with their album, and I would go straight to the store to buy the album. In fact, my fan out moment that was awesome was when I'm talking on a speakerphone with Willie and Ice Cube, and I just didn't, I can't say nothing, right? But I remember when both of those guys would release albums, and I would always be in the record store buying those albums as soon as they came out. So I remember, I can recite the lyrics word for word, but also here's the other thing too. So Willie came back, and he told me he had a new song, and I said, really? Okay, great. I'd like to hear it. And he rapped the song right there on the spot. And I love that because that really doesn't just show talent, but for anybody who's in the entertainment business, you should be ready with your stuff. Your heart and soul has to be into it. So not only is Willie committed to what he does, but Willie also has this amazing leadership ability. I could tell just from talking to him and listening to him as he would tell stories about, everything that he's done, not just in the music industry, but beyond. And Willie was always a leader. Willie was always the mastermind. So he's got that strength. He can take on any battle. He's not scared, but also he's got strategic thinking, which I think is critically important for Black men to have, is you must be a critical thinker. So without further ado, if everybody could give a digital round of applause to Mr. Willie D, please do that. All right. So let's get started, brothers. Okay, so right now we're in the middle of a real interesting election cycle, and I told I want everybody to remember, we're not here to tell anybody who to vote for and all that stuff, but you can talk about what you're going to do, what you believe, and this is a free space to express whatever viewpoint you have. All of you are intelligent men, and that's why you're here, and I want to hear those perspectives. So I guess I'll start with Rick. When you watch what's going on with this 2020 election, Rick, what goes through your mind, as folks are making their decisions about what to do next?
Wow, man. First off, thanks for having me. Can you hear me clear?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? Good. Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me on this panel with these amazing gentlemen here, man, and, sharing your platform for us to voice our opinion. As it relates to the election, I think this is a very historic election. This is a very it could be very impactful, because at the end of the day, I feel that you're definitely going to have losers at the end, because if Trump wins, you're going to have Black people mad. If Biden wins, then you're going to have white people mad. So at the end of the day, it's going to be some type of chaos, I think, that happens after the election. But my whole thing is, to get the election, at the end of the day, you got to vote with your dollars. You know what I'm saying? We as Black people need to create our own insulated economy and support Black-owned businesses, create Black-owned businesses, and be job makers versus job takers. That's how I really view it. So, with the voting, I'm with Ice Cube. Let's, get something for our vote. But at the end of the day, we got to vote with our dollars, and we got to support our own. At the end of the day, that's really what it is. The Asians are not worried about if Trump is winning or Biden is winning. They have their own insulated economy right here in the United States, where they put their Asian dollars in their Asian banks, and they're voting with their dollars, and they're loaning money to their community and building their community, and they can give a flip about who's in office, period.
Okay, so Ryan Mack, I know that you have experience in politics, and I know you have a lot to say about the election. Well, what say you? When you're seeing sort of the back and forth and different arguments and stuff like that, what are your thoughts going into this election?
Well, let me first, I'm not really a politician. I was asked by a good friend of mine, one of my mentors, who was a previous Supreme Court justice out of Michigan. He said, we need young brothers on the Detroit school board. And I'm a huge advocate of education. And not really even knowing what it's all about, I said, let me jump in here and see what it's all about. And I learned a lot about politics through that process. I learned about, it was definitely a heated process. We had like 74 candidates. I came in 13th out of 74. Didn't spend any money on it. I don't believe in spending money on politics, but my thing was all social media. But I will say that I think that every time election season comes around, I get frustrated, because I think that there's an overemphasis on politicians. I believe that I look at politicians like a maid. You pay the maid to do the dishes and keep your house clean, but you don't pay the maid to run your house. You pay the maid to make sure that the things that are really important are pushed out of the way so you can focus on what you're good at, the gifts and the skills that God has given you. You want to make sure you can focus on those and don't have to worry about dirty dishes because somebody else did those and the servant got those done. But nonetheless, I do think that it is important. I mean, I'm an economics guy, so I do believe that economics is priority, but it is important. I do feel that there are things that politicians do to make things better or can do to make things better for those who are underserved. And in the process, I do feel I'm happy that it feels as if for the first time that I can remember, the Black community is finally understanding the true perplexity of the entire electoral process. And before, if we voted at all, we would count the vote as the entire process. And that's like a small piece of the entire pie. The vote is just a small piece of the pie. And if we can learn anything from organizations like the Tea Party, they vote. And then once they vote, they immediately get to work and saying, now that I got you in office, here's what I want you to do. And then immediately start to say, if you don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, this specific list with a specific agenda, i.e. contract for Black America, that's why I'm so proud of what Cuba's done. If you don't do this, now here are some things of some other people that we're going to put up to take your butt out of office, to make you accountable to us. And that puts fear into the politicians, which again is just the public servant. So I think we're finally starting to really understand the full entire process. Now, again, I'm a strong advocate for Q, for actually putting together a specific agenda. And now the goal is, I'm a strong advocate for him going to both candidates and saying, this is what we want. I hope that Biden wins. Biden, to me, has put together the longest Black agenda from any major political party. But again, when Biden does win, there are some things that immediately we need to do to say, okay, Biden, here's what you promised. You promised increased investment with CDFIs. You promised tripling the Title I funding from 15 billion to 45 billion. You promised expanding Medicare and expanding healthcare to make sure that folks are eligible for Medicaid. You promised to make sure that, well, at least his police reform bill doesn't go as far as I like it, but he at least promised things like national registry and those type of things. You promised to show up and strengthen the Voting Rights Act. You promised, these are the things that you promised. And even in addition to that, let's put some things like my congressman, who will always be my congressman, rest in heaven, Conyers, so that we start having a conversation about reparations. We can, with the Black vote, we gave Biden that election. Now we can put him to task and say, we gave you this. Now this is things that we need to do because, man, you're gonna be the oldest elected president. Now we have to go to the next step. Once we get him in office, let's start putting him to task and say, if you don't win, let's find someone that we can collectively say, if you don't win, here's what we're gonna do to get you out. Because I do think accountability is, if you only had one time a year, if you had a job and evaluation of your performance was only 1 month a year, and for the 11 months, people didn't know what you did, and most people don't even know what the elected officials are doing. They're 99% of the time, you don't even know what they're doing. So then comes election time, they all of a sudden start showing up. Of course they're gonna get lazy because we're not holding them accountable 100% of the time. I'm glad that we're starting to learn that process.
Let me jump in and ask. That's a good point. So let me ask Willie. You ran for office down in Houston. During the time that you ran for office, and I know a lot of people got behind you. What did you learn about politics? I mean, to Ryan's point, in terms of what people know about what the officials are doing, or did you see things that people don't know about in terms of maybe the difficulty of being in politics? Or what did you learn from that experience? Uh-oh, it looks like Willie's muted. Let me hey Willie, you got to unmute your microphone. Did you okay. There you go.
All right, I was saying greetings, gentlemen. Big shout out to everybody that's watching. And a salute to Ryan for what he said, bravo. When I was running, the biggest thing that really threw me off was the Black gatekeepers. I would walk into a room, man, and they look at me like, I had something, stinky on me or something. They looked very shook when I would walk into the room. And the only thing that I could think of was that they didn't like the idea that I was a real change agent. They know that I ride for the people for real. They know I got a story record in the community. I'm consistent, and the people trust me. And so going in, I'm thinking, I know some of these guys, and I've worked with some of these guys over the years. So I'm thinking it would be more love. I only received, like, out of all of these politicians that I've worked with through the years in Houston, I only received one call when I announced that I would be running. I only received one call from a politician, one, and advice from two, after I made contact with the second one. So the biggest thing that I saw was the gatekeepers. Now, of course, to Ryan's point, we have a problem with, but not just Ryan, but I believe, I think, was it Eric spoke on it about the money part? Say, we got to get used to paying the cost to be the boss. Like, it don't end with just your vote. Once you get them in, you got to make sure you hold them accountable. So a lot of times we think that once we vote, the whole process is done. I did my part. Now, man, you just getting started. And we don't understand that before you even cast your vote, you got to help bankroll your candidate. It costs money. These signs ain't gonna pay for themselves. These advertisements, this staff, the travel, food, all of this stuff that it takes to put a candidate out in front of potential voters is not going to pay for itself. And this is where a lot of good, really, really good qualified candidates get buried. You'll have a candidate come out of nowhere who nobody knows, has never done anything in the community, and all of a sudden they're running for city council or they're running for mayor, and they're telling you how great they're going to be and how much they love the city and how much they love the people, and the people don't even know them. They don't have no history of no work at all, but all of a sudden they're running and they're out in front because they've been bankrolled. So we got to understand that it costs to be the boss.
Interesting. That's a good point that you bring up, and that actually is a great way to segue into Ryan. I know what your wheelhouse is, economics and stuff like that, and one of the things that I'm thinking about, I'd like to get your thoughts on this in general is when you talk about that bankroll, like Willie's talking about candidates being bankrolled and where money matters more than anything else. I even think about, honestly, to be quite honest, when Barack Obama ran, I remember getting a call from Jesse Jackson's daughter, and she said, "This is he's a community activist in Chicago. We ain't seen him organizing nothing. We've been in Chicago for 50 years. We didn't know who this guy was." And I saw what it was. It was, in Chicago, it's like a lot of cities. Politics is very corrupt. So if you rise up through Chicago politics that fast, I instantly am wondering, why are you being pushed ahead of the line that quickly? How is it that this guy, God bless him, smart guy, very articulate, very sharp, but I said, why are these white folks in such a rush to push him to the front of the line? And a lot of it came down to money. And so, like when Willie was talking about earlier, politics costs money. And Dr. Claude Anderson talks about how economics, forming an economic base, is critical to being able to shape the politics in your community. If you don't have the economics, you can't really do much of anything else. So, Ryan, what do you think when you see, when you juxtapose what you do in terms of economics, but then also what you see in the world in terms of politics and how we can actually make something change, make something actually happen?
Well, I think it's back to economics. Like as Rick said, I think everything is based on economics. Me, I'm a millennial. I have no faith in these politicians. Like, I'll be perfectly honest with you. As we know, Dr. Anderson says, Ice Cube said the other day, we've had thousands and thousands of Black elected officials. And what has changed? Not much has changed. So I think everything definitely goes back to economics. So it starts with, number one, entrepreneurship, Black business ownership. As Lamar Tyler, shared earlier today, I think that's the center of everything. We need to strengthen our own Black businesses. Our children need to be trained at a young age to go into business for themselves. I trained my daughter at a young age to be able to go in business for herself. So I think, that's number one, start with that. Also, financial literacy, as Dr. Boyce talks about all the time, training ourselves and our children on financial literacy. So I think for me, that is the base. We have to have an economic base in our community to be able to go into the politicians, buy the politicians and stuff like that. But we don't have a plan in place to, like I said, start Black businesses, support Black businesses, hire our own people, because people talk so much about Trump, and I personally don't care who anyone votes for. I literally have the ballot in my hand, the mail-in ballot, and I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, what am I voting for? Like, I just want to know. I know what I'm voting against, but people say, well, we want to get Trump out of office. We want to get Trump out of office. And I'm like, my business soared in the last 4 years. Now, I'm not saying that's because of Trump. I'm not saying whatever, but I'm looking at my personal situation, and I'm saying my business exponentially grew. I've been able to just hire my first employee and give a job to a Black person in the community. So I think everything starts with that. And then we can talk about politics. We'll talk about politics once we have our economic house in order.
Interesting. Yeah, it's funny when you say that, because it almost makes me think a little bit about like the criticism, when you heard 50 Cent kind of say, well, I'm voting for Trump because of the tax stuff, which I'm not in alignment with 50 Cent on a lot of political issues. I don't see eye to eye with him. But I really wonder, like, so when you say that, when you say my business soared under Trump, I can almost see somebody putting that in the 50% category, right? To say, like, yeah, you're doing good because you're rich, you're doing well, and everybody in your position. And I'd be curious, how do you reconcile that, right? Because even if you start off broke as hell, you start off in the hood struggling, bologna sandwiches with no bologna, roaches in your house, but then you come up, right? You figure out a solution for your own life, and you try to share that with people. You say, look, here's a way I was able to get away from that. There are some people that seem to want to disconnect from you at that point. They're like, oh, well, you're rich, you don't understand my problems. And it's really because you do understand the problem so well that you're trying so hard to share the message. Because if you were rich, you'd just be all just being rich. You wouldn't be like running through the hood trying to explain, like, hey, y'all, look, start a business. But you know what? I'll tell you this, man. I think, and I'm gonna move to Jeff Leitzy Jr. on this question. I know you got a perspective. I think Jeff is maybe 23, 24. How old are you, Jeff?
Yeah,
Say it again.
24.
24. Okay, so I'd like to hear that perspective, and I'd love for you to speak as a 24-year-old. But you're so mature. You probably sound like a 35-year-old. He's a smart young man. But I think also, when I look at the politics and the conversation like that we're having as Black men, I think that one of the things we're always dealing with is a perception issue. Like I know when Cube is going out and talking about politics, and I knew the behind the scenes of his contract with Black America. I knew he worked with experts, he worked with scholars and all this other stuff. But I heard people deliberately going out of their way to say, well, he shouldn't just get up in the morning and write together a plan. Who made him the leader of Black America? Who said he can just write a plan? Well, he didn't just write a plan. He talked to a lot of experts. First thing he asked me was, who else should I talk to get some insights into how to do it better? I gave a couple suggestions. He implemented those suggestions. He talked to Dr. Claude Anderson. He was really getting this back up, but it almost seems like there's a perception of Black men that people have, that were ignorant, filled with toxic masculinity. I as a Black man, I had a hard time reconciling the fact that Joe Biden, when he talked about the predators and that he wanted to send away to those prisons he was building in the 90s, he was talking about us, right? And so it seems like it's tough to reconcile or figure out, how do we as Black men, knowing that we're seen the way we're seen, how do we move forward, and how do you support each other without co-signing on any stupid thing that you see? Like I know right now in sports, you're talking a lot about Antonio Brown. He just got signed with the with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is going to be awesome to watch, right? If you're a football fan, but he has a perception issue, and there are people who make a legit point to say. In fact, we can even use him as the microcosm to talk about this issue of the Black man and the perception. But there's some people who feel like he deserves to be redeemed, and there are some people who say, no, man, look at what this guy did. Like, look at how he's behaved. How do you balance that? How do you balance that in your analysis?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of things. I really wanted to touch on some of the things some of the other gentlemen had said, because it's really, like, what they're saying is really great, especially about the economics. Rick and Ryan brought that up. And I feel like, just going on one of your earlier points, you were saying, like, how we get basically how we get boxed in. Black men get boxed into certain characteristics and categories. And I think that happened with Ice Cube when he brought up his contract with Black America. They were trying to box him in as a rapper, as a film movie maker. Like, what do you know about politics? And I'm sure, I don't want to speak for Willie, but I'm sure that's what happened to Willie D down in Houston. It's like, oh, you're a rapper. What are you running for political office for? We don't care about what you did in the community. We don't care about what you meant to Houston. We don't care what you meant to your culture. We just, that's why he was getting some of those looks and some of those things when he walked into those places. And that's what is frustrating at times, because it's like, even with me in my space, when I get to talking Black or get to talking about our people, our community, and saying what I think we should do and how we should move forward, it's like, you're just a sports guy, all right? Like, what do you know about? It's like, well, no, I'm Black. You know what I mean? I've been Black my whole life. I've been able to be in these circumstances and be able to uplift myself. I've seen my family uplift themselves. So I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I think in that case, just having the support of your own people is what is best for us. I think when you have those Black people that are, whether it's bankrolling you, funding you with economics, or funding you with just simple, whether it's retweets or reposts or just sharing, liking, subscribing, whatever to what you do, that's how you uplift yourself and give yourself a second or third chance or whatever. Because once you have the support of your people, I feel like our people have such a large base. We contain so much power that I don't even know if we realize it, right? Like, that's why these politicians come to our areas and try to get our votes. That's why they're pushing this agenda so hard, whether it's the Trump campaign or the Biden campaign. They're fighting for the Black vote because we have such a mass of power. We contain, so much in our community, in our space. I don't even know if we fully realize what all that we contain and what all we should be demanding from our people, from our politicians, and how we should be helping ourselves economically and financially.
All right. So speaking on that, talking about helping ourselves and advocating for ourselves. So Ryan, I know that you you have some really great perspectives on a lot of this stuff, and I tell you, one of the things I think I like the most about listening to you is that you challenge my thinking. You disagree with me, and I love that, because it makes me kind of take the time to reflect on my position as well. So let's lay it out like this. All right. So you mentioned the idea of getting possibly, helping. Let's say it's Biden, because that's who Black folks are voting for. We know that, right? We get them elected. The goal is to hold them accountable. Well, I'll tell you, my experience was when we tried to hold Barack Obama accountable, we still got called haters. We still got attacked. When Russell Simmons and I did that campaign on mass incarceration, where we got all those people to sign that letter, the celebrities and activists and everybody signed this letter to ask them to address the fact that they've incarcerated hundreds of thousands of Black people since the Biden crime bill and all that stuff. They didn't want to hear it. They basically said, fuck off, and it was really hard. It broke my heart, because I thought that this is what they really wanted to do. How do you hold them accountable? How do you get them to pay attention? I mean, it seems to me once they get elected, they got all the leverage. So now they really ain't got a reason to listen to you. What are your thoughts on that? Oh, you know what? You are muted. Let me hit a button here. There, I think you should be able to unmute yourself.
All right.
There you go.
In the Black community, we have these purity tests, and you're absolutely right, man. I don't think we've ever had a time in our history where unity requires 100% agreement. We have to really understand that in order for us to really be successful and move ourselves forward, it's okay to disagree. I've never met a person in my life that I've agreed with 100% of the time. And in this days where so many of us are, and I remember that I signed the letter that you did with Russell Simmons.
You did, thank you.
I said, because we have to hold, and we get so beholden to these politicians, but the thing is that you did it. I was proud that you did it. And the thing is that when we start having these, I'm not going to be disrespectful. When we start having these folks in our communities who look down on others who challenge, we have to have more individuals to really we can't have these closet supporters, okay? So now what your platform is doing, which is brilliant, is that those who were closet before, you did the letter. So now we can do another letter, another campaign. So maybe next time it's a little bit more forceful. I love Brother Sharpton, love Reverend Sharpton. I think it's awesome, but sometimes he holds the water a little bit too frequently, And sometimes he's so anxious to agree with someone as opposed to challenge them that we forget about the fact that he's still my president. I can agree with the fact, I like the Affordable Care Act, didn't like the fact it didn't have a public option. I love the fact that he passed the Fair Sentencing Act, didn't like the fact that it only went from 100 to 1 to 18 to 1 and didn't make it extremely equitable. I like the fact that he talked about pulling troops out, but then he started bombing people. Didn't like that, people, you know? So there's some thing, it's okay to have dual perspectives, that there's some things that you like and there's some things that you don't, but we never, the time to start holding folks accountable is always and will never ever stop being right now. And if you're the only one in the room screaming and getting blasted on social media and everybody's saying you're a hater, you got to keep the voice going, because sooner or later, then you're going to look at results. The brother said he don't know what he's voting for. I know what I'm voting for. I'm voting because I know that we have a public education system right now that literally the DeVos family, which is the Secretary of Education, they're moving funding from public education to religious schools and private schools, of which most Black Americans can't afford. I know that we have a Title I funding program that's going to be tripled, about $15 billion to $45 billion under Biden. Make sure we can get our teachers paid at least $60,000. That's one of the things I'm voting for, that he better produce, and I'm making sure he's going to provide. And if I'm the only one screaming on the mountaintop that, I'm going to make sure our teachers are paid, we can reduce class sizes, we can get the amount of counselors from like maybe 1,500 to 1 to 500 to 1, get more counselors, because the biggest access for our forward economic advancement is education. And you can't talk about school choice if you got a choice between crap and crappy, and we got these school deserts in our communities. So what are we voting on? We know that they have parents that have to bus, especially in the city of Detroit, my hometown, busing their children 2 hours across town by themselves at the age of 12 just to get to a good school. Because we got these schools. No, and then we're moving funds out of. That's one of the things I'm voting for. Getting access to Medicaid, making sure that we don't gut the Voting Rights Act like they're doing. Don't gut the Civil Rights. Right now, it's even more, it's more challenging to file for discrimination because they've gutted the Civil Rights Act because of the Allen versus Comcast case. They have to prove 100% discrimination. If you got discrimination at your job, it's harder. You have to prove 100% discrimination. It's even harder to file for that. So there are a lot of things. There's no health care bill on the other side. We got a decent one. It ain't Medicare for all. I want Medicare for all. I can't. A lot of people on the left will say, if you ain't for Medicare for all, you're a sellout. No, it's better than nothing. So it's nothing wrong with having nuance, folks. I think we get these, the king of the anthill mentalities, where we want to be the best in our own little small circle. And then because you don't agree with me, it's cool. You can disagree with me and we still gonna be friends. When I close my laptop, I can curse folks out on Facebook. When I close my laptop, I forgot what I even said half the time. But I definitely agree that, and I'm just so glad when November 4th is gonna come, because I get so frustrated that we don't focus on the real deal, which is making sure your business is running. My business is flourishing as well. And COVID actually was a blessing for me because my business is virtual. But I do understand that there's a lot of folks who are not in that position. They need education. They need health care. Those things are being threatened. They need access to voting. They need access to funds. They need access to CDFI funding that invests in 60% low and moderate income families, households. We need those. We need those dollars to come back. Minority supply agencies, those dollars and increased investment that Biden said he's going to do.
So I'm going to jump in because you sound like a campaign commercial a little bit. You really.
I'm just saying we need those things, man.
But you know what? No, but I do agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And I think, and this is why I want to definitely go to Willie, because here's why I want to make that transition and ask you this question on this, Willie. One of the things that Willie said, Willie probably don't even remember when he said this to me, but one thing that Willie, and this was actually when I realized, okay, I think we're going to be friends. I really do. Is he said something when we talked about, attacks from other people, people that feel like Black people need protection, right? A lot of the politicians will talk about protecting Black people. We're going to protect you from the police. We're going to protect you from this. We're going to protect you from that, right? Well, there's some people in the community, who don't feel like they necessarily need protection. They want opportunities to prosper and grow and build. And Willie said something like, to the extent of, we talked about people coming after you and attacking you. He said, "Ain't nothing you can do to me that I can't do to you," right? And I something about that really vibed with me because, it said to me, like, we ain't got to always be on the defense. We can play offense, right? Rather than me reacting to what you did, maybe you should be in a position where you're reacting to what I did. And I think that that fits the natural state of man. I think that's the natural, not to say that you guys don't have that. All of you are ambitious individuals in what you do. But one of the things that turned me off when I would hear politicians say, we're going to save you from COVID. We're going to save you from police. We're going to save you from this, save you from that. I'm like, I don't need you to save me. You know, because I got my boys out here, and we're gonna go out here. They're gonna have to save you from us, because we're all about powernomics. We're gonna come get ours. So Willie, give me your thoughts on that, man, in terms of you know, how we can, you know, accept the fact that not everybody's equally strong, right? Not everybody is in that category of being a few good men that can really go out here and make things happen. I know you do. I know everybody in here has made some things happen. Some people are vulnerable. How do you kind of make your voice heard and say, look, you know, we're men and we want to prosper. We want to win. We don't just want to sit there in the disabled category and the protected class. We can go out and we can succeed on our own. Give me your thoughts on that.
We do the work. We just go in and we do the work. We don't sit around. We don't wait. We don't wait on a leader. We don't wait on an appointed ambassador. We go in, we do the work. We build instead of destroy. We take care of our children. If we produce children, we make sure that we see those children all the way through adulthood and beyond. It don't stop at 18. Everybody grow at different rates. You know, we got this thing where we want to put our children out of the house at 18. Well, I did my part. No, you brought that child into the world. Everybody is not going to grow at the same rate. So your child may be 18 years old, but they're not self-sufficient and independent. They still need your support. They may still need your financial support. So my kids got my support for life, financial and otherwise, for life. I brought them here, and so I have a duty to walk with them the entire distance. And I'm gonna say this, Boyce, I know a lot of people, you've been getting a lot of heat for saying that you're not gonna vote for either party. It's important for us to understand that political duopoly is a trap, and one doesn't have to be pro-Trump to be anti-Biden. I personally care more about quality of life than quantity of life. You know, I make money, I get money or whatever, but I'm not with the notion that 50 Cent has that, oh man, I'm gonna have to pay a whole bunch of taxes. So I'm gonna vote for this guy right here. No, I think of the greater good for the people. The people is always first. If I have to make a few more sacrifices so that I can pull my brother up, hey man, I'll do that, because I know that if all of us are eating, you know, it's better for the group. People get caught up in money too much, but what kind of person are you is what I want to know. Trump threatened the lives of Americans when he, during that first debate, told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. Now I'm supposed to believe he cares enough to give us $500 billion in incentives to improve our lives. You know, it's one thing to seemingly have to explain this thing about Trump's allure that he has on some black men. You know, it's almost like it's a damn man crush going on or something. Even celebrities, they want to go and take a picture with this nigga. You know, they want to smile and all that old shit. Let me tell you something, man. You know, black man, and this dude has a man crush on black men, despite his history of denigrating Black Americans and his refusal to explicitly acknowledge systematic racism. You know, so for me, it's important to underscore that realistically, you know, okay, Trump, he's going to get about 15% of the vote, but, 15% of the black male vote. But, many of those dudes are dudes that's living in Wonderland and guys who are doing okay financially, and they don't really give a damn about everybody else. So, in my opinion, screw those dudes, man, and at the end of the day, close victories are about majorities. Close victories are not about majorities, but the potential of small groups in important states to shape national results. So at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to. These small groups of pockets, even like the people that have the audience is like you have voice, the audience is like Tariq have, my audience, the guys on this panel audiences, we have a voice that mainstream media can't tame. They can't control that. So in the past, we only had CNN, we had ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. And that's all we had. We had to deal with that. We had to suck it up, and we had no other alternatives. Now we got alternatives, and we got millions of voices, independent voices that they got to adhere to, and so they can't automatically control the message like they used to be able to. Now we have an opportunity to control our own image, and it's blowing their minds because historically they've been able to control the narrative and shape our image. The mainstream media in cahoots with the government to taint Black people's image. Why would they want to do that? So they could justify the mistreatment of Black people. If they make us look like savages, if they make us look like we're like bottom feeders, then the rest of the world look at it and be like, oh man, well, you know, they get what they get.
Well, let me jump in on that point then. Rick, you're a filmmaker, and so you're deeply aware of the way Hollywood portrays Black men. What are some of your concerns about the imagery in terms of how Black men are portrayed by society? What are some things that you've felt, observed, and wanted to contradict as a filmmaker? Oh, you know what? Let me hit a button there. I think we got you on.
All right, there we are. So yeah, I will say this: for filmmakers, content creators, it's a great time right now. You know, the gatekeepers are out to lunch. Right now, you can create content and take it directly to the consumer. That's what we're doing here in Atlanta. I'm inside of our studio now at Studio House Atlanta, located in the heart of downtown Atlanta. And we're creating content to control our narrative. As Black men, it's very important that we start to tell real stories that's going to enhance, that's going to influence, that's going to motivate. Here at the studio, our mantra is imagine, create, monetize. We want to imagine your world, create your world, and monetize your world. You know, in the studio, we have a mural that of the founders of like